I'd like to call this meeting of your Newark City Council to order. Autumn, please call the roll.
Mr. Blake?
Here.
Mr. Bubb?
Here.
Mr. Koss?
Here.
Mrs. Floyd? Here. Mr. Guthrie?
Here.
Ms. Hall? Here. Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Marmee?
Here.
Mr. Rapp?
Here.
And Mr. Rolletto?
Here. We have all present and accounted for. Next, if you'll join us in the invocation by Mrs. Floyd, please stand, followed by the pledge.
Would you bow your heads, please? Almighty God, we thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon us. We thank you for the beautiful fall weather that we have right now. We ask that you be with our citizens who have difficulty either with financial issues or with health issues. We ask that you be with us tonight as we make difficult decisions for the city. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Floyd. Next on the agenda this evening, we have caucus. That would be anything that council would like to discuss about the agenda this evening. Do we have anything? Seeing none, next we'll move to the minutes of our council meeting from September 8, 2015. Do we have a motion to approve those? Motion. Motion by Mr. Rapp, second by Mr. Johnson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Same sign. Thank you. Next we have 4 appointments by Mayor Hall. First, appointing Mark Motter to the Etna Corporate Park. I'll have to read all these. Joint Economic Development Zone 2 Board. This term will start immediately and expires October 19th, 2016. Next is also Mayor Hall appointing Mark Motter to the Etna Park Board. That begins immediately and expires December 31st, 2015. Basically, these appointments are taking place for Stuart Monahan, right? Yes. Yes. I guess maybe, Madam Law Director, do we have to vote on these? Do we do a voice vote on these, or do we not have to?
No.
We do not have to. Okay. And next, Mayor Hall is appointing Brian Moorhead to the Board of Directors of the Newark Development Partners Community Improvement Corporation. This term begins immediately and expires December 31st, 2015. And lastly, Mayor Hall is appointing Mark Motter to the Licking County Tax Incentive Review Council. The term begins immediately and expires December 31st, 2015. Without objection, those will also be appointed and received and filed. Next, we have reports of standing committees. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. One from Finance, one from Service, one from Economic Development, and one from Capital Improvement. Without objection, those will be received and filed. We have no reports from city officials this evening. Communications, we have one from Paul Moran, a written statement of his comments during the September 8, 2015 Newark City Council meeting. I got one other communication today from Mayor Diebold asking me to read this aloud, but basically I'm just going to say I got a communication from Mayor Diebold opposing the dispatcher's move over to the county. And we will also receive that and file. Next this evening we have comments from citizens. There are 2 places from comments from citizens, one now and one after the legislation. Basically this is not a debate with council, this is an opportunity for you to come up and be heard. If you'll raise your hand so I can have you come up. William?
I'm William Butcher, 263 Union Street. I just been noticing here lately my alley has potholes in it again, and I'd like to see the city tear that alley up, repave it. Now, I've been getting complaint from my caseworker. She's been complaining to me about the potholes. It's been rough, and she would like to know if the city could come out and refix it or pave it. And she's a little bit scared of breaking her car's axle. And Top-10 forecast should move clear tonight, low of 60. Tomorrow, high only in your 70. Today's Wednesday is the first day of fall. High to mid upper 80. I'll get your 10-day Top-10 weather forecast.
Thank you, William. We'll mention that alley to Mr. Rhodes on the click and fix. Don't plan on getting paved though, but hopefully they can help the holes. Anyone else on citizens' comments this evening? Good. We'll move on to ordinances on the second reading, 15-25.
Hold on, Mr. President.
I'm sorry?
I believe Daniel had his...
Oh, I'm sorry, Daniel, I missed you. Come on up. Thank you. You know, you might have to go like this sometimes.
Daniel Crawford, 163 South 2nd Street. Sorry about that. I was waiting to see if anyone else was going to raise their hand. Thank you, Doug,
You're
for
trying to be
pointing that out.
strategically last, weren't you?
Yes. Anyways, yeah, coming to comment on 1576. I know this is a hard vote for a number, actually for all of you, I'm sure. And I come here, as I did earlier in the year, thinking about my children first and foremost. And I'm concerned about this path that we could be taking. I wish that the same thing had been done for this as what had been done for on the firefighter issue, that there had been some kind of listening session at the library or something to hear what the public wanted to say about it. And I know there's got to be some people on both sides, but most of the people I've encountered have been opposed to this outsourcing of this service, vital service at that. And the thing that comes to mind for me is that we have to distinguish between how government operates and how business operates. You can't operate the two the same. They don't exist for the same purposes. And outsourcing a service for a business, you have the risk that you ruin the quality of service over time. But in the consequences for that, you can lose customers. Reducing the quality of service in public service, though, can cost lives. And that's where I'm really concerned. And I'm not saying that's absolutely going to happen. I'm sure the dispatchers at the county are fully capable of doing their job. But if even one life is cost as a result of this, whether it's a citizen or a police officer, I don't know, there's a lot that weighs on your conscience. So I hope that all of these are fully considered as this vote is taken tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Anyone else for citizens' comments since I missed the last one? Wave your hand. Okay, we'll go to ordinances on the ordinances on the second reading, 15-25.
Ordinance 15-25 by Mr. Marmee, Mr. Koss, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rapp, an ordinance amending Chapter 890 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Newark, Ohio regarding the levying and collection of municipal income taxes.
You've heard the second reading of 15-25. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Bubb.
I'll move that we adopt ordinance 15-25.
Motion by Mr. Bubb.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Floyd. Is there any discussion on 15-25? Seeing none, Autumn, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bubb?
Yes.
Mr. Koss?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rapp?
Yes.
And Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
15-25 passes 10-0. Next, we have resolutions on the second reading, 15-76.
Resolution 15-76 by Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rapp, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service and the Director of Public Safety enter into a contract with the Licking County Board of Commissioners and Licking County Emergency Management Agency for the provision of emergency 911 communication services on behalf of the City of Newark Division of Police.
You've heard the second reading of 15-76. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Cost.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 15-76.
Motion by Mr. Cost.
Second.
Second. Is that Mr. Bubb? Second by Mr. Bubb. Do we have any discussion on 15-76?
Mr. President,
Mr. Guthrie.
I think everybody probably knows where I am on this, but yeah, I feel like I need to state my piece. And obviously, most of us on this council learned to count and have a pretty good idea where the votes are here, but I think we all need to express our own feelings about how we feel about issues that, and I think Daniel's term "crucial" hit the nail on the head. I think this is a long-term deal and a short-term document that's in front of us. And what I'm here to say is not. I want to make sure that. I'm not trying to criticize the sheriff's office or county 911 Actually, I think the Teamsters is a great union. I think AFSCME is a great union. But this is about the safety of our citizens, and it's about the long-term interest here. I think everybody has seen the email that Roger Stollard sent. Roger, I think, and over the years we haven't agreed on everything, but I'll tell you, he's been right on the money on this. And because of the fact that he's not, he's no longer a city employee, I think he feels that, he can call it like it is, and I think he's been accurate. I want to start with the fact that this items and others that we've been dealing with in the fire department are issues, in my opinion, that should be negotiated between the bargaining units and the administration. They're bargaining table issues, and I wish that's where these discussions were occurring, but they're not. By taking these types of steps and arbitrarily ignoring our employees' rights to bargain these types of matters, in my opinion, is going to prove to be costly to our city, costly in the form of legal fees that frankly we can't afford. The people of Newark overwhelmingly rejected Senate Bill 5 a few years ago, and I want to repeat, overwhelmingly. And yet we continue to go down this path of ignoring what I believe is a moral obligation of bargaining in good faith with our city employees. Regarding the credibility of our police and fire chief, they are both highly credible, and I'm proud to be able to call them chief. However, both chiefs on these issues are carrying the administration's water. We erred, and I am ashamed of my vote, when we extended the probationary periods of these two fine professionals, because by doing so, we hindered them from speaking as openly about these issues as I believe they would have, because they are in essence, as probationary employees, at-will employees. I think it was a mistake, again, and I regret my vote on that extension. And frankly, I apologize to the two chiefs because they should not have that extended probationary period beyond the statutory requirement. They're both good soldiers for the administration, but I'm not convinced that they believe that what they are doing is the right thing by farming out police dispatch to the county and by opening the door to part-time workforce of firefighters and safety inspectors. One thing that is painfully obvious is that, frankly, we've been paying the county too much for fire dispatch in the past. That's obvious by this contract. If we're going to go down the path of farming out police dispatch, we should not be looking at a 2-year negotiated contract. We should be looking at a long-term contract that allows small cost of living increases annually. My friend, I hope he's still my friend after I say this, Mr. Rhodes, is a good negotiator, but he's also a very good political calculator. David knew that if he could bring council a contract that on the surface saved us money, the administration would have the majority of the members of this council over the barrel. And the county was smart enough to agree to only a 2-year deal. Because once our dispatch mechanics, the mechanics of having a dispatch system in the city, and the employees, the quality long-term employees who operate that system, once they're long gone, we are over a major barrel when this contract is renegotiated. After our dispatch structure is blown up by, in my opinion, this ill-thought agreement, we will have no leverage, none, nada, zilch, to negotiate a good contract in 2 years with the county. I won't be here in January. but I'll likely still be a taxpayer. I'd like to say that council, in my opinion, will regret this agreement. But the truth is that it's really the taxpayers in Newark that have the potential of regretting this agreement. Because by the time that they realize what quality service is lost, it will be too late to turn back. Newark will be stuck in an irreversible, costly agreement which has the potential to expose our police officers and our citizens to safety-related failures. And now I hear that police officers are going to be taken off the street to dispatch calls during the transition period. With an obvious shortage of police personnel, we are taking officers off the street to dispatch calls for the few officers who are left to answer them. I cannot say how disappointed I am that we are going down this path. But I'm glad that one of my last votes on this council is to vote no against this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guthrie. Anyone else would like to comment on 15-76?
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Please, Ms. Holmes.
Ms. Hall, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I'm going to vote no as well for many of the same reasons. But I recently had a really bad experience with 911. And there was an incident in my backyard, the neighbor, I called 911 and I needed an officer. And 3 times I gave my address and 3 times the address went in wrong. And by the time I got through my house and the officer was coming down the street and I had to flag him down, he says, they gave me the wrong address. Well, I could have been on the back porch, knocked out. I don't know, this woman was crazy. But that kind of turned my head after talking to AFSCME. And I have toured 911 and I've toured the police station as well. I don't want to see anybody lose their job. And like Mr. Guthrie said, we're going to lose a lot of long-term people. So therefore, I'm going to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Valletta?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be voting no on this proposal. It appears that the real cost savings would not come from sending police dispatch services to the county, but the real cost savings would come from renegotiating the terms of our fire and EMS dispatch contract with the county to a price that's fair to our city. By renegotiating that contract, we could accomplish cost savings that could be used to update our police dispatchers' equipment. We could save $200,000 a year and keep our city safe by keeping our excellent dispatchers with their intimate knowledge of our city and police officers under local control. If we remove our police dispatching services now, in 2 years we will be at the mercy of the county when it comes to pricing. They could raise the price if we won't have any option to fall back on. Why does the county that overcharged us for over a decade get rewarded with more of our money? I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Valletta. Anyone else? Autumn, please call the roll to vote on 15-76.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
No.
Ms. Hall?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
No.
15-76 passes 7-3. Next, we have 15-78.
Resolution 15-78 by Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating and disappropriating monies for the current expenses of municipal corporation.
You've heard the second reading of 15-78. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Blake?
move to adopt 1578.
Motion by Mr. Blake. Second by Mrs. Floyd. Is there any discussion on 15-78? Autumn, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
And Mr. Roletta?
Yes. 15-78 passes 10-0. Next, we have 15-79.
Resolution 15-79 by Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Rath. A resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
You've heard the second reading of 15-79. What is your wish?
Motion to adopt?
Ms. Hall, motions to adopt.
Second.
There's a second down there somewhere. Who was that? Mr. Rapp? Thank you. Is there any discussion on 15-79? Seeing none, all, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rapp?
Yes.
And Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
15-79 passes 10-0. Next, we have on the second reading, still 15-80.
Resolution 15-80 by Mr. Marmee, Mr. Cost, Mr. Rapp, Mrs. Floyd, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
You've heard the second reading of 15-80. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Blake?
move to adopt 15-80.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Blake, second by Mrs. Floyd. Is there any discussion on 15-80? Seeing none, all, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rapp?
Yes.
And Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
15-80 passes 10-0. Next, we have 15-81.
Resolution 15-81 by Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Rapp, a resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service to prepare and submit applications to participate in Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvements Program and to execute contracts as required.
You've heard the second reading of 15-81. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Cost?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 15-81.
Motion by Mr. Cost,
Second.
second by Mr. Bub. Is there any discussion on 15-81? Seeing none, all, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rapp?
Yes.
And Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
15-81 passes 10-0. Now we move on to resolutions on the first reading, 15-83.
Resolution 1583 by Mr. Marmee, Mr. Cost, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rapp, a resolution appropriating and disappropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
15-83 will be held for a second reading. Next, we have 15-84.
Resolution 15-84 by Mr. Rapp, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, a resolution declaring the periodic review of the Joint Economic Development Zone 1 contract unnecessary and canceling the review meeting between the City of Newark and the Board of Trustees of Etna Township, Ohio.
15-84 will be held for a second reading in 2 weeks. Next, we have 15-86.
Resolution 15-86 by Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Rapp, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the City of Newark to prepare and submit applications to the Ohio Department of Public Safety for fiscal year 2015 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant funding.
15-86 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading. And then next is 15-87.
Resolution 15-87 by Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Rapp, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the City of Newark to prepare and submit to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development a one-year use of funds action plan along with the application for fiscal year 2016 Federal Community Development Block Grant funds as required by 24 CFR Part 91.220 for various programs related to housing and community development.
15-87 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading. Next, we have 15-88.
Resolution 15-88 by Mr. Marmee, Mr. Cost, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rapp, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
And 15-88 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading. And last this evening, we have 15-89.
Resolution 15-89 by Mr. Cost, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Rapp, a resolution appropriating the real estate known as parcel 054-280-590-00-000 Newark, Licking County, located at 174 Mount Vernon Road, Newark, Licking County, Ohio, authorizing the Director of Laws to proceed with the complaint for appropriation in the Licking County Court of Common Pleas and declaring an emergency.
15-89 is on the first reading, but it is an emergency, so it will only be read once. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Cost.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 15-89.
Motion by Mr. Cost, second by Mrs. Floyd. Do we have any discussion on 15-89?
Mr. President.
Mr. Cost.
This is an emergency based on an ODOT deadline.
Thank you, Mr. Cost. Any other discussion on 15-89? Seeing none, I'll please call the roll vote.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost? Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Raff?
Yes.
And Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
15-89 passes 10-0. And that concludes our legislation. Thank you so much for your attention. Next on the agenda, we have our second opportunity for comments from citizens. Once again, this is not a debate in council. This is just an opportunity for you to be heard. Do we have anyone? Mr. Butcher?
I'm William Butcher, 263 Union Street. I just been noticing when so on the front porch, quite a few motorists had not been pulling over for emergency vehicles. Now, most of these vehicles is on fire run, squad, whatever. And I'd like to see be doing something about this. Because one of these days, one emergency vehicle might get in an accident. Who knows? I'd like to see a city put a stiffer penalties on people not pulling over for emergency vehicles. And let me just say, I was down at Fire Station 1 this afternoon, taking a tour of that station. And that station was the most beautiful station I ever did see in my entire life. I went upstairs. I was going downstairs, down toward the floor of the fire station, and the first floor of the station where the engines are, it was really beautiful. See the fire equipment, and then one emergency vehicle was out, and we just see the pumper and tower. And I would just say I want to thank the battalion chief for giving us that tour. I want to thank Alan, the engine captain, give us a tour. And I would just say I enjoy myself being down to Fire Station 1. This is the most beautiful station I ever did see in my entire life. That passed.
Thank you, Wade. Anyone else for citizens' comments this evening? Mr. Moran?
Paul Moran, 63 North 4th Street. Thank you. Recently, some unused envelopes were retrieved from a city trash container on the square. Now, somebody within the city has done this because nobody in the general public have access to city property. And these are City of Newark envelopes, unused. And they were laying near the top of the trash can. Now, there should be an explanation for this kind of stuff. It's taxpayers' money being thrown in the trash. There's somebody within the city, I don't know if they're doing more of this or if this is a one-time deal or what, but somebody in the city is this throwing away taxpayer money deliberately. They're still usable, these envelopes, the City of Newark emblem. And they're for the fire department, which even has a post office box, which, why would they need a post office box? I mean, you know, I've seen UPS and FedEx make deliveries to the fire department. I mean, that's more waste of taxpayer money having a post office box for any department within the city. It's just plain foolishness, wastefulness. And there's more that's going on, I don't know. But I said, and one of the envelopes was even torn up. That was strode away with the city emblem. So, something that should be looked into and hopefully will not happen again. We don't know. But I'm just going to leave them here. Whoever wants to take it up the matter, they can.
You just hand it to Ms. Hall if you would, and she'll pass them around here. Thank you.
I'm just doing this out of concern of taxpayers and voters. Not about me personally. It takes in everybody that pays taxes and votes. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandt. Anyone else for citizens' comments this evening? Anyone from administration? Our Honorable Assistant Law Director could be here.
I will pass, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Hall.
Yes, United Way just finished their wonderful week of caring. I want to thank all the volunteers across the community that were engaged in projects that was Day of Caring and now it's Week of Caring. So a lot of great things got accomplished in the community, and it did come to a culmination yesterday with a great United Way parade. I want to thank everybody participating in that. Certainly the looks of the young children alongside the road was a big win-win in many ways, and they'll never forget times like that. Councilman Blake and I met with our new youth council for the first time, the students themselves last Thursday, and he surely is welcome to make a couple comments when it gets around to him, but we were, I think, very pleased in the second year of you kind of competed to get into those positions and really had an engagement and an interest in local government, and they look forward to having a great year with them. So with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mayor. Now for council's miscellaneous, Mr. Blake.
Yeah, I agree with the mayor. We had a great first meeting with our students for the Newark Youth Council. Looking forward to an engaging year. Our structure this year is going to be visiting some different city facilities so that they get a sort of a hands-on experience about learning city government, and then they will be reviewing our agenda, which tonight's agenda we reviewed with them last week and answered some of their questions that they had from our teenage leaders, and so I thought that was a good agenda. And he left out, but he gave them a tour of his office, so they got to be able to see the mayor's office and go through that, and got a good experience there. So looking forward to a good year for the youth council. And while we're still on the youth council, I want to thank Director Grady, because we are going to go to the 911 center and view their facilities, because obviously the dispatching issue came up and it was a discussion of interest to the youth, and so we'll go and take a tour of the facility, and so I want to thank you for your generosity there. The second item I want to bring up, I actually want to thank the Newark Kiwanis, especially since their president, Mr. Doney, is here. Last week I got an opportunity to go speak to the Kiwanis about, you may have seen this in social media, and hopefully you'll see some more publicity about it, but Spooky Town Bash is coming to Newark. It's going to be actually on Halloween, which is the last Saturday of October. This is a fun event. It's organized by the South Newark Civic Association, the Licking County Library, the City of Newark. Thank you, Director Rhodes, and for our Parks Projects Coordinator, Chuck Jackson, for his help. But our financial backers are Dennis University, Park National Bank, Owens Corning, Reese Pyle, Draco Meyer, and Licking Memorial Health Systems. This is going to be our main stage is going to have fun entertainment from 4 o'clock until 10 o'clock in the evening. Our main features will be the ultrasounds, which is a group of doctors in our community, which they're named the ultrasound, so doctors, I don't know if you get the joke, but there it is. But then the main feature will be the Hoodoo Soul Band, which is going to be playing from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. We're going to have a lot of fun activities for kids, fun activities for adults, and it should be a nice family-friendly event. Sort of the hidden secret about the event is the participation with the Licking County Library. Our focus is reading and literacy, and so while it's a Halloween-themed fun activity for the whole community, and I want to stress that it is open to the whole Licking County community, so even though the Civic Association is sponsoring it, it is open to everybody. But the hidden secret is that we will be having sort of small group story time telling, so spooky story time telling, getting adults to read to children, getting parents to read to children, and that's really the emphasis at which we're focusing at how it fits within the mission of our Civic Association, is promoting literacy, promoting volunteering, and we're really excited about this event. Hopefully you'll see some more publicity about it, and if you want to volunteer, please go to mysouthnnewark.org. Right on the homepage is a link to volunteer, and we want to encourage people to do that. So all you people watch this on YouTube, go to mysouthnnewark.org and go and click our link to volunteer. So with that, call Finance Committee meeting, and with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Maybe for the youth council this year, we'll get some, at the end of the year, get some paint that's waterproof this year and stuff.
We'll see how that goes.
Mr. Bub.
I'll pass, thank you.
Mr. Goss?
I will pass, thank you.
Mr. Goss.
Mrs. Floyd.
Well, I was going to pass, but I want to introduce Deborah Matthews, who's sitting right back there. Wave your hand so they know. Who is going to run for City Council in Berkeley, California. She's a former student of mine. If you may remember, we discussed the Matthews House on Eastern Avenue last year, and she was greatly involved in that, so I just wanted to introduce her.
Thank you so much.
I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Floyd. Good luck. Thank you.
you.
Mr. Guthrie?
Thank you, Mr. President. The one issue I wanted to mention, I got an email from Lou Blind, who is active in, I believe it's the First Baptist Church of Newark on Granville. I think everybody here is aware that, they do a free community breakfast. And there have been some issues with the sign that they put up. They like to have it up pretty much all the time so that the community knows that it's occurring. And apparently it's a code violation. I communicated with Service Director Rhodes and with the Law Director, and the Law Director has drafted a fix, and hopefully we'll have that before committee here real soon, and so that we can talk. And the fix, and I indicated to Doug and David, the fix needs to be narrow. I mean, we don't want to open the door to a lot of other temporary signs, but the churches that do good things in the community by especially providing community breakfast is something that I think we're all pretty tolerant of, and so is the general public. And there's really nothing offensive about this sign. If you drive by and see it, you'll see exactly what I mean. So stay tuned, because that's coming up. Thanks.
Mr. Guthrie, I believe Director Sassen has that ready. Do you want to do it on the 28th, or would you want to wait?
Yeah. I think that'd be
And
great.
I think that'll be economic development on the 28th. Okay. Ms. Hall?
Thank you, I will pass.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Johnson?
I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Marmon?
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I guess I'm going to start off my comments by saying it was a rough weekend in high school football for the city of Newark. But on the better side, I want to thank Mayor Hall. He came down, rushed down actually, to the Newark Catholic football game in order to make it in time for the halftime festivities, which included a wonderful ring ceremony for the Newark Catholic baseball players, in which Mayor Hall gave the rings to every single player and coach on the team. It was a very neat event for the young men. It was a great recognition, and I tell you what, between Mayor Hall being there and then ex-coach Wes Poth, because he coached football there for eons. He was there long before I went to Newark Catholic, and so you know how long ago that was. And he just retired last year. It was just a very neat event. And Mayor Hall also graciously took care of the weather so it didn't rain on us. But it was really neat, and I appreciate him being there. And I thank all of those in attendance. It was just a neat experience for them too, so I want to thank you very much. And with that, I'll pass.
I'm not sure you'll be able to, but can you hold that up again to give the audience a shot at it?
We got a little bit of a ring here.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, very nice. Thank you, Mr. Marmon. Mr. Rapp?
Thank you. I'll call an economic development committee meeting.
Good idea.
And with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Rapp. Mr. Relight.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to mention I had a great experience volunteering with the Muscular Dystrophy Association at their MDA lockup, and I actually called some people in this room for bail money, and they were nice enough to bail me out for a great cause. So I want to say thank you, and that'll pass.
Actually, Mr. Relight, I offered some money to keep you in there. Thank you, Mr. Relight. Thank you very much for your attention tonight. We certainly appreciate it. Our next, just a little housekeeping, our next committee will be Monday, September 28th here in this room at 5:30. Our next full council is Monday, October 5th at 7, also in this room. I appreciate you coming. We always appreciate your input. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Koss, second by Mr. Rath. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. We're adjourned.